There are thinkers who challenge the world, and there are those who challenge existence itself. Friedrich Nietzsche belonged to the second kind, a man who dared to stare into the abyss and found his own reflection staring back. He was born on October 15, 1844, in Röcken, a small Prussian village, on the same day as King Friedrich Wilhelm IV's birthday, so they named him after the king. His father, Karl Ludwig Nietzsche, was a Lutheran pastor. His mother, Franziska, was devout, practical, and strong. Their home was filled with prayers, discipline, and silence. But when Nietzsche was only 5, his father died of a mysterious brain disease. A year later, his little brother also died. The boy who would one day declare, "God is dead," grew up in a house of mourning, surrounded by women, by faith, and by silence. Nietzsche was a quiet, thoughtful child, but his silence was not emptiness. It was thought becoming form. He loved poetry, music, and Greek myths. At school, they called him the little philosopher. He studied classical philology at Bonn University, later at Leipzig, where he discovered Arthur Schopenhauer's The World as Will and Representation. Schopenhauer taught that life is suffering and that art is our brief redemption from it. Nietzsche read him and felt as if he had met his own shadow. Later, he would say, "That book mirrored my soul." He also met Richard Wagner, whose music thundered with myth and madness. Wagner became his mentor, almost a father. But every idol eventually breaks before philosophy. He was not only a thinker, but a musician. Throughout his youth, Nietzsche composed piano pieces and songs, delicate, romantic melodies filled with longing and restraint. For him, music was not escape but expression, the language of the soul when words fell short. He once wrote, "Without music, life would be a mistake." At 24, Nietzsche became a professor at the University of Basel, one of the youngest in history. But academia bored him. He wanted not to interpret old texts, but to set them on fire. His body betrayed him early. Migraines, nausea, failing eyesight, pain would be his lifelong companion. And yet, through that pain, he began to write. In solitude, he forged his vision. Wagner's art had once been Nietzsche's religion, but he began to see through it. The nationalism, the sentimentality, the blind obedience. In Human, All Too Human, he broke away not just from Wagner, but from every illusion that enslaved the human mind. From then on, he wandered alone across Europe, Switzerland, Italy, the south of France. No home, no steady income, no family. He wrote in small rented rooms, while his health deteriorated and his thoughts grew incandescent. It was during these years that he wrote his greatest work. Thus spoke Zarathustra. Not a book, but a revelation, a hymn, a poem, a storm. In it, Nietzsche announced the death of God, not as an act of blasphemy, but as a diagnosis of modern humanity. The sacred order had collapsed, and with it, the foundation of meaning itself. This was nihilism, the emptiness that follows the death of old gods. But Nietzsche did not despair. He wanted to go beyond nihilism, to build new values upon the ashes of the old. He called for a new type of human, the Übermensch, the Overman, one who creates his own meaning, who stands above herd morality, who dares to affirm life in all its chaos. At the core of this transformation lay his deepest idea, the will to power. For Nietzsche, life itself was not driven by survival or reason, but by an inner creative force, the urge to grow, to overcome, to become more. Every being, he said, is an expression of this will, a striving to expand, to impose form, to affirm itself. The will to power was not domination over others, but mastery over one's own weakness. It was the pulse of life itself, the rhythm that made existence sing. And yet, he asked a question that would echo forever. What if you had to live this life again? Every joy, every pain, exactly the same, for all eternity. He called it the eternal return, not a theory, but a test. Could you love life so completely that you would embrace its repetition? To say yes to the eternal return was to say yes to existence itself. That was the highest form of strength. From this came his final principle, amor fati, the love of one's fate. I want to learn, he wrote, to see as beautiful what is necessary in things. There was one woman who crossed his path, Lou Andreas Salome. Brilliant, free and fearless. He proposed twice. She refused both times. She wanted friendship, not possession. Her rejection wounded him, but from that wound he learned compassion, the courage to love life as it is, even when it does not love you back. In 1889, in Turin, Italy, Nietzsche's mind broke. He saw a horse being beaten in the street. He rushed forward, embraced it, and wept, whispering, "You poor creature." Then he fell silent, forever. He spent the last 11 years of his life in mental darkness, first under his mother's care, then his sister's. Elisabeth Förster Nietzsche adored him, but she twisted his writings, using them to serve ideas he despised. Nietzsche died on August 25, 1900, in Weimar, aged 55. One must have chaos within, he wrote, to give birth to a dancing star. He was that star, burning too bright, too early, leaving behind a trail of fire. His ideas about power, meaning, art, and courage shaped the entire 20th century, from existentialism to psychoanalysis, from literature to revolution. He lived alone, suffered alone, and died almost forgotten. But perhaps that was his fate. Because to face the abyss and still whisper yes to life, that requires not comfort, but courage. The courage to be alone.